The subject of tonight's class, you may have seen, maybe not. We are talking about the 10 Commandments. It's actually not something that appears in the parasha, in the Torah reading this week, but it will appear next week. But I wasn't invited for next week, so I'm going to talk about it this week. Okay? So these 10 Commandments, wie heißt das auf Deutsch? 10 Gebote. We all know about them. If anyone has been to a synagogue, they see them up on the wall, right? It's a symbol of Judaism. Has anyone ever thought about what it actually stands for, what it represents? What are these 10 Commandments? We saw the title of the class is that there are 613 mitzvot. Yeah? People have heard of this number, 613. It's a lot of mitzvot. So what is 10 Commandments? What are they? Are they separate? They're actually included. They're part of the 613. So what makes them unique?
It was given us first.
Okay, they were given first. That's interesting. Why do we need to have 10 if we have 613? What is unique about them? And what's the other question we need to ask? Why? What do we want to ask? About the 10 Commandments. If we're going to have just 10, what would be interesting to know? Is it enough? Is it enough? Is it enough for a Jew to keep 10 Commandments of the 613? Is it enough, Jimshon? Not really. Some people say, I'm a good Jew, I keep the 10 Commandments. I hope they're right. It's not so simple. No. The 10 Commandments themselves, it's not enough. We have many more. So why 10? And why these 10? Right? That was the question I was looking for. If we were going to have 10, why should we have these 10? Do we know what the 10 are? We're going to talk about them a little bit later. I want to hold off a little bit. Maybe you're going to help me. So, what do you think could be special about these 10 Commandments? You know about the 10 Commandments? You know which ones they are? More or less? More or less, yeah? So what is special about them? Anyone have any idea? It would be very helpful for me to have some ideas, participation. We've already had one good idea. You said these were the first 10 that were given. That's somewhat true, but we know that the 10 Commandments were given on Har Sinai, on the mountain of Sinai, to Moses, and all of the mitzvot were also given to him then.
Really, I thought they were written down in the desert.
All of the mitzvot were given at Mount Sinai. The Torah that we have it was written down later in the desert, right? But he received all of the Torah. In fact, not just all of the written Torah, but all of the oral Torah. The interpretation to help us to understand the written Torah, which is necessary, which is a different class, a different discussion, that was all received on Mount Sinai on that day. So what is it about these 10? Is there anything unique about them? What would you think?
No, it's a common ideas, which was...
Just nice ideas.
Yeah. Which was known before.
They were known before?
They were known before. Yeah.
Really?
Not to kill people. But there was no monastic religion before. And that's the first step, I think.
I think what you're talking about is the mitzvahs that are given to the whole of humanity.
Yeah.
What Shimshon is talking about is the whole of humanity. What are the 10 Commandments for the whole of humanity? We're talking about the mitzvot is something that is incumbent upon a Jew, right? For Jews. Are the 10 Commandments for all of humanity? Ruth, yes or no?
No. Yeah, naturally, yes.
No.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, thank you.
But everybody have taken it. Yeah?
No, they haven't. No, they haven't.
No.
No. It says Shabbat, right? Is a non-Jew supposed to keep Shabbat? No. It's a special Jewish present.
No, they take a rest. Thank you.
The Shabbat is something only for the Jewish people. Okay? That's the best example. The other ones we can discuss a little bit, and some of them do come into the other ones. So we see it's not something that is for universal. It's still part of the mitzvot. Our tradition tells us that there are 7 mitzvot, 7 obligations that are for every person to do. Every human being, Jewish or non-Jewish, he has to keep 7. But that's not these. There are ones that do not appear here, and there are ones here that do not appear there. There are 10 here, there are 7 there. Okay, so what else could it be? If you're only going to have 10, what would you think? Maybe they could be the most 10 serious ones. The most serious? The ones with the worst punishment. What do you think? Is that what they are? Why not?
There are other punishments for other mitzvot.
Fine. Maybe these are the most serious.
There aren't, because there's, as far as I know, there are other dead punishments you can get not for the 10 cents or something.
Not for what?
If you like, there are some important rules inside, but I think that we Jews have other
equally important.
obligations.
Yom Kippur does not appear on the Ten Commandments. Yom Kippur is very, very important. Eating chametz on Pesach does not appear on the Ten Commandments. That's very serious. So it's not about that. So what is it? So if you were asked, if you studied all of the 613 mitzvot,
was after the 10 commandments.
we came out of Egypt.
They have a sense.
Say again?
They sin during the
Sin, right? We're talking about chametz. It's Pesach. Chametz is what they prepared when they came out of Egypt.
But the matzah, the material was created when they ran from Egypt or after.
Before, as they left. But the Torah was given 49 days later. So they already had the mitzvah of matzah. They had the mitzvah of korban Pesach. They had these mitzvot. These are not on the Ten Commandments. So it's not something that applies to all non-Jews. Universal. It's not something that's the most serious. Okay? So what we're going to try and discuss today is what it is. Okay? And we're going to try and go through them. If you were consulted, I don't think any of us were consulted about what should be on the Ten Commandments. And even if the Ten Commandments were being given today, and not 3,000 years ago, we may not be commanded. There may be greater and wiser people than you and me. What would you think would be the type of thing that we would include in the Ten Commandments? Which type of mitzvah? What sort of structure would you have? Any ideas? I don't want anything too specific, just generally speaking. What would you suggest? There's a mitzvah, for example, that when it comes to the Pesach offering, that the bone should not be broken. Should that be one of the Ten Commandments? Would you include that particular mitzvah in the Ten Commandments? Probably not. No, why? Why not? It's very important.
It's very important, but it's too specific.
Too specific, good. So what are we looking for? We're looking at things that are general. Very good. Things that are general. Anything else? General mitzvahs. Anything else? What's the basis? Would there be some sort of introduction to these things? Let's go through them. I brought with me from home something. We're going to try and... I have two things with me today. One, we're going to write down what these mitzvot are. And secondly, I brought a chumash, a Torah in German. Because there are some words that are contained in here that are not so simple. Not so simple to translate. I think I've done a little bit of research for some of the words in German, because some of the words that we're going to use today you may not know in English. It appears, the Ten Commandments actually appear twice in the Torah. Once in Parshas Yisro, and once in Parshas Ve'et Hanan. Just 1 second. Here we are. Okay. So, which of the Ten Commandments do we know? No. I wanted to bring just a white one, but I could only find one with this as well. So this is for pictures and photographs and things. No? How many do we know? I've forgotten your name. Igal, thank you. Come on, you're going to help me. Should we go in order? Not steal. Okay, I'll tell you how this goes. How many do we have? We have 2 tablets, remember? We have 2 tablets. Why do we have 2 tablets? We're going to come back to that question. Wouldn't it have been easier for Moshe to come down with 1 tablet? He had to have 2 hands like this. Wouldn't it be easier with 1? Why do we have to have 2? We'll come back to that question. So Igal said, do not steal. 3, 4, 5. Where does do not steal come? It comes here. Do not steal. I'm going to just do it in Hebrew because I want it to look a little bit more authentic, you know? Tiganov. What else? Shlomo, give me another one. Say again? Good. That comes down here. Honor your parents. Would you say honor your parents belongs here on the 10, Moshe? Not bad.
Only your parents.
Okay. What else? Good. adultery. What else? One, two, three. Do not kill. That goes here. Anything else?
I'm your God, I'm your own.
Ah, very good. And I am your God. We call that Anochi. Anochi. Right, what else?
You don't have to partner.
Okay, you don't not only have to, you're not allowed to. What's that called? Idols. What else? Anything else?
Shabbos.
Shabbos. That comes down here. Shabbat.
Don't carry the name of God.
Good. We're nearly there, yeah? We're getting there. You're so quick. How do you say that in Hebrew? You're Israeli. Lo tisa. Et Shem Hashem l'shav. How do you say that? Do not swear falsely. We'll see this. Okay. How many more have we got? 2 more. 9 and 10. Any ideas?
Don't give bad witness.
No. Similar. It appears here. What you're saying appears here. Go on. What did you say?
Don't lie.
Right. Lo sa'aneh. Lo ta'aneh. So you must not give false witness. False testimony. Zeugenaussage. Nachon. And what's the last one? We're going to have to go to our rabbinic student here. What's the last one? David. It's your chance for glory. What's the 10th one, Ruth? Come on.
Don't wish.
Lo tachmod. Do not covet. I don't know how to say this in English. In German, sorry. Lo tachmod. Erlusten. Erlusten. You know this? You shouldn't want your neighbor's things. You shouldn't want his house. You shouldn't want his donkey. You shouldn't want his wife. It's called lo tachmod. Okay? Sorry, I spelled that wrong. It's called in English to not covet. I don't know what it means. To not covet. Okay, so these are the 10 commandments. Okay? So if we look at them, I don't know if it's so clear. We have, I am the Lord your God. Do not have any other gods. Do not use my name in vain. Swear falsely. Shabbat. Honoring one's parents. Kill. Do not kill. Do not commit adultery. You know what commit adultery means? Take another wife or another husband. Do not steal. Do not swear falsely. And do not covet. Okay? Yes.
That one question. Why is it the third rule is to keep Shabbat? If we say that Yom Kippur is the Shabbat of the Shabbat.
It's the 4th rule. Why?
I thought like Yom Kippur is like
Shabbat Shabbaton.
Yes.
This is also Shabbat Shabbaton. This is also Shabbat Shabbaton.
So
Yom Tov is
so
not.
it's meant, so
This is more
say-
important.
Say it's meant to keep Yom Kippur or say keep
So
Shabbat
this is
in
something else we didn't talk about before.
Yom Kippur anyway come after Parsina. Yom Kippur's come from the result.
Very good. Okay, good. He's saying something interesting. There's the mitzvah of Yom Kippur. Okay, but it's a good answer. But that doesn't mean it didn't exist. When Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moses received the Torah, he received all 613 mitzvot. Even though the events that led to Yom Kippur hadn't happened yet, that day was already a day there that was there for kapara. Okay.
Could it be
So-
that he kept all the mitzvot?
Okay, these are different questions. We can talk about these. We have to try and stay focused on this. How can it be that the Avos kept all the mitzvahs? What exactly did they keep? What did they not keep? They didn't keep everything. We see certain times when Yaakov, Jacob, didn't marry 2 sisters. There are many cases where we can ask questions, did they keep or they didn't keep? That's not for today. Okay, so now what we're dealing with is that we have these 10 mitzvot, yeah, these 10 different obligations, and they were written on 2 tablets. Does anyone want to, maybe they've heard before, what is the difference between 1 tablet and 2? Why was it all not given on 1 tablet?
Commitment between you and God. Commitment between you and another person.
Igal said that 1 is talking about the commitment, those mitzvot that are connected to man and God, and the other tablet is committed to man and man. Does everyone agree? Which one is which, by the way? Sorry for... I know it's obvious. Which one is which? I want you to say it so I can ask a question on you.
The right
The
one.
last one. the other
Ah,
one.
very good. So basically speaking, this first side is things that are connected to man and God. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Until you get to
Yeah.
this one. And these are connected to man and man. Don't kill him. Don't have adultery. Don't swear falsely. Yeah, all these things. What's this one doing down here? You have to honor your parents. It's just put here because it was to make it even, 5 and 5, and we couldn't put it on the other side. Or maybe it belongs on this side. What do you say? What is your parent?
It belongs to both, maybe. So.
It belongs to both. So I write it here. Should I put it here?
It's like a bit between for them. So.
Okay. How could we? What do all these things have in common? How can we try to understand? How can we try to bring all of these things under one category? If we're going to say it's between man and God, it's a problem, right, Igal? More or less, 80% is also a good mark, but it's not quite accurate. What has God have in common with your parents?
Yeah, parents give it to your life.
Good. So what is the first one? How would we describe the first tablet? Mitzvot between man and Creator. How many creators are there? Very good. We always said just nearly. Man and creators. Creators. Yes? Our parents created us. You know that? That's one of the reasons we have to honor them. They gave us life. God also gives us life. The Talmud says there's a partnership. God and father and mother. Each of them give you a part. Your mother and your father give you parts of your physical makeup, and God gives you your soul. Basically speaking, I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated and more spiritual than that, basically. So the first thing, the first tablet, is those mitzvot that are connected between a person and his creators, people who created. Whereas on the other hand, the other side, what do we have? Things between one man and another man. Okay? We'll pick it up again in a minute. There's a famous story in the Talmud, maybe you've heard of it. It talks about a person who wanted to become a Jew. He wanted to become a Jew, and he wanted to learn, what does it mean to become a Jew? What do I have to do? So this man, he went to the great sage Shammai, and he said, please, I'd like you to teach me the entire Torah. Entire Torah. But he had one stipulation, one condition. I would like it all while standing on one foot. You know, as they say, I'm very happy. People say they're very happy to learn. Yeah, I'm prepared to spend the whole night learning, as long as I get a good night's sleep as well. Yeah. So this person said, teach me the whole Torah standing on one foot. Is this possible? No. So what did Shammai say to him? Get out. Threw him out. He was actually one of 3 people that came to Shammai, and he threw out all of them. And then he went to Hillel. Hillel and Shammai lived at the same time. They were the 2 greatest sages of the time. And Hillel did not throw him out. What did Hillel say to him? Is anyone familiar with this? Sort of, basically. What Igal said was, I'll tell you what the Talmud says. The Talmud says like this: whatever is hateful to you, do not do to your friend. And the rest is just commentary. Right? So this man, he wanted to know everything. He wanted to know all the laws, everything. I want to be a good Jew, tell me everything. Shammai said, how can I possibly do that? Such a person, you're obviously not interested. You want to stand on one foot. It's a joke. Get out. Hillel said, okay, I'll tell you something. This is the secret to the entire Torah. Whatever is not nice, that you would not like someone to do to you, you should not do to them. We understand that this boils down to the basic idea, the basic mitzvah that we see in the Torah, that is, like Igal said, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You have to love your fellow as yourself. It's basically the same idea, but it's said in a slightly different way. It's interesting. That doesn't appear here. Where does it say here, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha? We have 5 mitzvot between one person and another. Don't kill him, don't steal, don't do all these things, don't covet. You know what covet means? I shouldn't desire your iPhone. If I desire your iPhone, I've transgressed. Why not say I have to love my fellow? Yeah? So this is what he said. This is what he said. So we have to think, how does this fit in the light of what we've learned today? We've taken 613 mitzvot and put them down to 10. Someone comes along to Hillel and tells me everything. He says, I'll tell you one statement, and that is everything you need to know. Everything else is just the details of this halacha. And this halacha is, this mitzvah is, everything that you would not like to be done to you, make sure you do not be done to yourself. So let's say You wouldn't like anyone to steal from you. You wouldn't want anyone to steal your wife. You wouldn't want anyone to covet your belongings. You wouldn't want anyone to kill you. Fine. But there's a problem. What's lacking here? What are we missing? What was Hillel missing in what he said to these people?
It's the right part of the...
Good. You thought you were just going to be sitting back this afternoon. I need you today. Good. We're missing one. This is very nice for the second half, no? Very nice for the second tablet. What about the first? What about the first luach, the first tablet? How does this fit in? Any ideas? One of the main commentator there, named Rashi, said it's also included. We have to see exactly what that means and how we can put this together. But he says over there that you should not do to God what you would not want him to do to you as well. The same basic idea. What boils down to it, what it means, is that these ideas that we are seeing, this basic concept of love your fellow as yourself, is something that both reflects a person's relationship with his friends, with the people in society, and also sheds light on his relationship with God. Okay, so the idea that I would like to do today, this is not my own investigation, my own study. I've taken it from a rabbi who I've heard this from myself, and I think it was very, very inspiring. That's why I want to share it with you. But the purpose of what I would like to do today is to try to go through and explain that in fact there are not 10 commandments. You know, we had a big problem, there were 6, 13, and now only 10. And now we're going to say there's not even 10, there's only 5. There's only 5. And we're not only there are only 5, but we're going to see that the 5 actually go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? In order to understand this, we have to try to see how the relationship between a man and his fellow man can be reflected in the same as the relationship with man and God. Before that, though, I would like to go through a few points for these mitzvot, and then maybe we can understand them better. The first of the 10 commandments says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem your God, Asher hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim, who took you out of Egypt from the house of slaves. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Yeah.
I know you do. Any questions? 10 commandments. 10 commandments. What's the first commandment? What's the first thing you're going to tell me to do? I am the Lord of your God who took you out of Egypt. Michael, what's the problem? No? Moshe, what's the problem?
I didn't get the question.
I'm asking I want the question from you. What's the mitzvah?
What's the connections? I didn't get it.
We're not until we haven't started the connection. Don't worry about that. It says, do not kill, do not steal, do not this, honor this, keep the Shabbat. I am the Lord your God. Anything different about that? There's no. It doesn't seem to be a commandment. What's it telling me? It's telling me a statement. You hear the question? Yeah, is that clear? Why? What? This is something that the commentators discuss.
But do not steal is a command.
Yes, but you're telling us 10 commandments, but the first one is not really a commandment. So we learn from here that there's a mitzvah to believe in God. The first commandment is to acknowledge Anachi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. Why was it written in this way? That's a topic for discussion. But the first of these commandments is Anachi. What's interesting is in English we say 10 commandments, which means obligations, mitzvot. Yeah, but in Hebrew we don't. We say Aseret HaDibrot. What's a dibrot? A saying. It's not actually saying a commandment. We translate it, and in German it's also translated, I'm sure in other languages. In Hebrew it's not. It's not Aseret HaMitzvot, the 10 mitzvot, or whatever it might be, tzivuyim. It's the 10 statements, dibrot. So you don't have to actually understand it as being a commandment. That's the first thing. The second thing that it says, the next mitzvah, it says, you shall have no other gods. You shall have no other gods. I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods. What does that mean? Do not make any images. Okay? Images that are in the heavens or on the earth. Do not bow down to them. Why not? This is very interesting. Why should you not do this? Ki, because I am Hashem Kelkana. I am a jealous God. A jealous God? Do we think of God as being jealous? Why should we not have other gods? Because there are no other gods. Because we have to serve only God. No, because I'm jealous. That's very interesting. Okay? The third mitzvah says, do not take my name in vain. Do not use my name in vain. So sometimes we think this means you should not use the name of God because it's a holy name. Yeah? You shouldn't use the name of God because it's holy. But our rabbis tell us that it means that we're not supposed to swear, schwören, yeah, in his name. What does that mean? We are not supposed to listen to it. There's different types of swear, different types of oaths that a person can take when he swears. A person can swear that this is what happened and this didn't happen. They tell us that this is referring to a particular type of oath, a particular type of swearing. What is it? It's when a person says, makes an announcement using the name of God that this chair is a chair. In the name of God, I declare that this is it. That is what this is transgressed. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to use his name for something that is of no value, of no worth. To say something that is meaningless. To say this is a chair. Okay? Let's go on. Shabbat. Okay? We have to keep the day of Shabbat. If we understand the mitzvot as being categories, there are different categories of mitzvah, then maybe we can understand the Shabbat. It also includes all the other chagim and things like this, Yom Kippur, maybe everything's included there somehow, I don't know. Honor your father and your mother. Good? Your mother and your father. Then it says you should not kill. Everyone knows you shouldn't kill. Then it says you should not commit adultery. Does this make sense? You have a marriage, you have to honor and respect the other person, and you have to be loyal to that person. Then it says, do not steal. Does anyone know what this mitzvah is actually referring to? Lo tignov in Hebrew means do not steal. What do our rabbis tell us this means? It's referring to a specific type of stealing.
So your neighbor's wife?
No, that's later. Oh, that's the last one, that's adultery.
Even the time, yeah.
Kidnapping. Zu entführen. Okay? What is kidnapping? Someone takes someone else's child and kidnaps them and wants money or whatever it might be. That's stealing, right? If you were going to make general categories, what would you say here? You'd say kidnapping? You'd say stealing. Stealing, no? And within stealing, there's many types of stealing. So this is something we have to point out. Next, do not give false testimony. Zeugenaussage. Falsche Zeugenaussage. What does it mean to give false testimony? You go to a court and you say about your friend, he did this or he didn't do this. And it's false what you said. What's the problem with this?
Something like what was before. So still.
Why? Stealing the truth.
I would give a false, let's say something else, so I would steal him his freedom or his...
What happens if I said he was innocent? What happens if he said he was innocent and he was guilty?
Yes,
That's also a problem.
Steal his freedom?
I steal his punishment.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's two different things. Stealing is more connected to one's property, what you own. Here it's talking about when you go into a specific setting like a court and you say about someone such and such and you lied. If you wanted to make a category, what would you say? We said kidnapping. When we said to steal, it means kidnapping. We said it should say stealing, more general concept. Why did the rabbis understand it specifically referring to kidnapping? And here it says you should not give false testimony. What would be a more general? Do not lie. It doesn't say do not lie. We mustn't lie. But we learn that from another verse in the Torah. The verse that says midvar sheker tirchak. Distance yourself from falsehood. Why this specific case? Okay? And the last one, lo tachmod. You should not covet your friend's possessions. Not his house, not his wife, not his sheep, not his cow, everything else. Okay, we know that's not a good thing. But is this the one thing, is this something we would consider to be so serious The most serious thing, if a person does this, what does he get as a punishment? Nothing. You know why? Because the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court, cannot punish a person for something that he did not do an act. If I'm jealous of you, if I hate you, I can't be punished. It may be a transgression, it may be something the Torah prohibits, but it cannot be punished. If I desire your iPhone, I cannot be punished. Wouldn't it be better to have something more general? Do not hate him, love him, do not stand by his blood. When you see your friend in a situation where his life is at risk, you have to, no, do not covet his property. Okay? So we've been through and clarified a little bit what the understanding is, often according to the rabbinic understanding of some of these mitzvot. And with this, hopefully we can understand now these pairs that I was going to try and say. So again, Hillel said, don't do to your friend what you shouldn't want done to you. We are saying that there's a relationship between man and a relationship between man and God that is reflective. What does the mitzvah mean that we have to believe in God? We have to acknowledge his existence, right? We have to accept it. When it comes to the relationship of another person, how would this be reflected? Right? I know there is a God, and I accept that he's a God. Sometimes people know things, but they don't accept them. Or they accept them, but they don't really know them. We have to know and accept. We have to live with it, understand what that means. How would we possibly reflect that in a relationship with another person? When we have a relationship with another person, this doesn't have to be marriage, this can be any good relationship. What do we have to do? We have to acknowledge that they exist. I recognize you. Yeah? You know how rude it is when someone ignores you. Sometimes we ignore people, unfortunately. It's not nice. You walk down the street, you see someone you know, but you don't want to speak to them, so you pretend you didn't see them. It's like you're denying their existence. It's like you're denying their existence. If you cannot cope with the existence of another person, what do you want to do? If you cannot deal with it, it upsets you that someone exists, you kill them. It's a terrible thing. But the ultimate sign that I cannot cope with your existence is that I take your life from you. It's the most extreme level, but that's ultimately it. I cannot deal with this person being around. I cannot accept the fact that this person is alive, that he exists. So what do? The person has to kill him. It's a terrible, terrible sin. But that is a sign that his very existence is something I cannot accept. If you now transfer that back to God, what does it mean? You can't do that with God. You can't kill him. What's the equivalent? What's the equivalent? Not accepting his existence. I'm not accepting his existence. I'm not accepting there is God. So it's the same part of the relationship. In the same way as the relationship between a man and another person, a woman, two people, is that I have to accept you. I acknowledge your existence, right? I acknowledge you're there. And the consequences of that, this is reflected in the first part. It's reflected between man and God in the sense that I know I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. I am he. Why does it say Egypt? That's because that's where I demonstrated my power. And that's where we can see, that's the sign for the generations. That's the power of Pesach, Passover. But when it comes to a person, you have to acknowledge him. If you kill him, that's the ultimate sign of not acknowledging him. What's the second? What's the second prohibition? You're not allowed to have other gods. What do we say? Any other gods in my presence. He's just said, I am the Lord your God. Maybe there's another one? No, there's no other one. If there was another one, what would that be? What would that show? If there was another God, if we were to show honor or recognition or belief in another God, well, how would that reflect on the first part of the relationship? Yeah? That would corrupt the relationship. That would show that the first existence, the knowledge of an all-powerful God is not fully true. So he says you should have no other gods in front of me. Why? Because I am a jealous God. God is jealous. When the Jewish people commit idol worship, it says that he is a jealous God and he will seek revenge. When someone is very, very jealous, sometimes you hear crazy boyfriends, relationships are broken up, and they come back and terrible stories you hear. But that happens. Why? Jealousy is very, very powerful. When a person is jealous, he's angry and he can take things out. He can take revenge. If we have other gods in front of him, we are taking away the uniqueness, the special nature of that relationship. We're taking away the holiness of that relationship. Okay? So how would this reflect between man and man? This is not so hard. It's going to get much harder. How would this acknowledgement that there's God, no other gods, we're attributing all the power only to one God, no other gods, why he's jealous and we can't have anyone else. How would this be reflected in the relationship between, let's say, man and wife? Any ideas? No ideas. It's too obvious? Yeah, it's too obvious?
He'll be able to like another one.
Take another wife. A man comes home with another woman. What does that tell you about their relationship? He's violated the relationship. Right?
But in another case, if you respect only one person, if you don't compare it to your wife, if you compare it to the people in general, then you will respect only one person and ignore all the others. So it doesn't really fit.
You are saying that in the same way as we have to accept God's existence, no. If we say that a person could come to kill somebody else, he can come to kill somebody else, he cannot deal with that person's existence. We're just talking about the existence of God. We're not talking about anyone else at that point. Yeah? So therefore, any person who can not accept his existence, there may be some urge to kill him. Now we're saying there's a different mitzvah, with a different stage of the relationship. Now I acknowledge your existence. But this relationship that I have between me and you, a very good friendship, a husband and wife is the most obvious example. If something comes in between that, to suggest that you are not my only wife or you are not my only husband, then the holiness, and the uniqueness of that relationship is damaged, is tarnished. Okay? Jealousy. Say what?
From wife you can get divorced.
Of course you can, but that's not what adultery is. Adultery is not getting divorced and then marrying someone else. They may be jealous. A couple may split up and they get remarried, but that's not adultery. Adultery is when a lady is married, and either she lays with another man or another man lays with her.
If I don't like my wife, or my wife did, for my opinion, something terrible for me, I can get divorced from my wife.
Fine.
I cannot get divorced from God.
Fine. We're not talking about divorce.
You can be Islamic and you can be Christian, but if you're born as a Jewish, you will always stay Jewish.
Fine. Fine, but that's not. We're comparing the aspect of this relationship in terms of a loyalty towards Hashem, to God. That there's only one God. So too, in a relationship between a man and wife, there's only the husband and the wife. Is there a way to get out of it? Yes, that's another parasha, that's another discussion, that's talking about divorce. And it's true, you cannot divorce from God. Fine, but that's not the point. We're talking about the relationship here. We're not talking about whether there is a way to find another relationship and marry someone else. Okay? That's not what we're discussing. It's not talking about divorce. It's talking about the uniqueness of this relationship. We're talking about how is a relationship built. The first step of the relationship is built on the acknowledgement of that person's existence. The second one is to say that there is something holy, there's something special about that existence, and that cannot be compromised by someone outside. It cannot be compromised between man and God by giving credence to other gods. And when it comes to a man and woman, it cannot be interfered with by having another party. Right? That removes the holiness. When a man and woman get married, it's called kiddushin. It's called kiddushin. Kiddushin means holiness. That unity that binds a husband to only this wife and the wife only to this husband is something that's called holiness. So too, the relationship between man and God is holy only for as long as he only attributes that there's only one God. For as long as he says, I once met somebody. In the morning he says the prayers of a Jew. In the afternoon he says the prayers of a Christian or a Muslim, I can't remember what. And in the evening he says, because they're all such beautiful prayers. Aren't they all beautiful prayers? So I do this in the morning and this in the afternoon. 1 second. If you're attributing him to be the God in the morning and then you're attributing something else, then none of them are your gods.
Okay, but also 2 commands below stated, don't be jealous.
We're getting there. What do you mean too low? No, this one is jealous. No, where does it say don't be jealous?
Don't wish something else that doesn't yours. Don't be
jealous. That's not jealous. We'll see what that means when we get there. We're going in stages. Okay, the next one, a little bit more difficult. The first side, number 3 and number 8. Number 3 is you should not use God's name in vain. What did we say the example of this was? We were told that it means when you take a shavua, you use God's name to make an expression of something that is, a table is a table, a chair is a chair. It's using his name for no purpose. Yeah? It's like saying a blessing A blessing on something and then not eating. Normally you make a blessing and then you do something. Make a blessing on tefillin, on eating food, and then you don't actually accomplish it. That may or may not be, I think that's actually a dispute between the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim, whether when someone makes a blessing and doesn't actually eat on something, that's actually a transgression of this. But that's not our discussion. How can we compare this, okay, using God's name in vain, and the prohibition of stealing from someone else? It's a little bit more subtle, this one. It's much more subtle. First of all, as you said before, Igal, lotisa, you should not lift up. You're removing something. Okay? In the same way as you're removing God's name and you're using it for something not useful, so too you're removing something of someone else for no reason. When somebody has something stolen from him, he has been violated. If anyone has ever had a house burgled, yeah, and he comes home and everything's gone, it's just empty, he feels that he's just been taken advantage of. He's been used. It's a terrible feeling, okay? When God's name is used in vain, that is, so to speak, the property of God. Right? What is he? What can you take? How can you take use of him wrongly? It's taking his name. That's what he is. The name of God is the holiness that we have. He's not physical. So when a person says an expression of God's name, it can either be used to connect to him and to express something of value, or it can be used for no reason. So too when it comes to the property of a person, that, when that's removed from a person, when it's stolen from him, that is taking something from him that belongs to him, that violates him. And what do our sages say? Not all stealing. All stealing is forbidden. But here we're specifically referring to something of kidnapping. A person kidnapping, if they have a child. There's nothing more precious to a person than their own child. If someone takes that away from them, it's like using their very essence and just discarding it. So the third level of the relationship is what? It refers to the property, so to speak. The property of a person. The property, you have to respect a person's property. Some people, they play with each other's things and they borrow things and they don't put them back. And a person says, what are you doing? It's my drink in the fridge. Well, what is it? I just took your drink. It's no big deal. No, this is mine. A person is made up not just of a body and a soul, but also the things that he owns. His property is very, very important to him. We see this very much in the Torah. We see it specifically by Jacob, Yaakov. He takes care over little things. He takes care over little properties of his. So this is the third stage. Again, the existence of a person, then the fact that it's holy, that it's only a relationship between you and that person, and thirdly, a respect for the person's property, which is respected, which is represented in terms of his physical properties. And when it comes to God, the use of his name. If you use the name of God for a non-proper purpose, a non-holy purpose, it's like you've taken away from him something that belongs to him. What's the fourth level? We have to keep Shabbat. Honor the Shabbat. Remember, Shamor v'zachor. Remember and honor the Shabbat. And what's the ninth one? Do not give false testimony. Do not come to a court of law against your friend and swear falsely. What's the common denominator? What's the common denominator? Again, keeping Shabbat. What do we do with Shabbat? Make Kiddush. What's Kiddush? It's holy.
Blessing.
Say again?
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing. What are we doing when we acknowledge, when a Jew keeps Shabbat, when he observes the Shabbat, when he dresses up nicely and he prepares for the Shabbat? What is he recognizing? That I'm a Jew and this is our holy day? No, what is Shabbat? Again, look at the other side. When it comes to man and man, you shouldn't give false testimony about that person. When we keep Shabbat, when we in tefillah, in prayers in synagogue, what do we talk about? We talk about one thing in the day and one thing in the night. Vayachul hashamayim. You know this prayer? He finished the heavens and the earth. He made for 6 days and then he rested on the seventh day. What are we doing when we do this? And in the day we say, V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. The Jewish people should keep the Shabbos. La'asos et ha-Shabbos. To keep it. What does it mean? What are we acknowledging? Relaxing? No. We can relax as well. No, what are we declaring? What are we declaring? What are we declaring? What are we announcing?
We're exacting the rules.
No. What are we declaring when we keep Shabbat, when we make Kiddush? We stand up and we declare something. That God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. That's what we're declaring. Okay? In the second testimony, the second time it appears, we're declaring something else. That Hashem, God took us out of Egypt. There's two different parts to this. The fact that it is, He made the world in 6 days, Vayechulu Hashemayim v'haaretz, and then Zecher li'yetziat Mitzrayim, a remembrance for the fact that He took us out of Egypt. When we observe Shabbat, when we make Kiddush, when we do not make Malacha, then we are recognizing that God created the world and also that He took us out of Egypt, and we are giving testimony. We are giving testimony. You know, that's why we stand up in synagogue when we say this. You have to stand up. Because we have to stand up and we cannot say it by ourselves. We have to say it with more than one person because we have to do it as an edus, as a giving a testimony. Now, does this help at all to connect us to the other side, to the second mitzvah? The second prohibition, Lo ta'aneh ba'arecha et shaker. You should not give false testimony to your friend, about your friend. Any similarities?
Yeah.
What are we doing? We're giving false testimony. With Shabbat, we're giving testimony of what is true. An announcement, a recognition of God being the creator. And if we go to our friend, how can we transgress that? By speaking falsely about him. By saying he did something that he did not do, or didn't do something that he did do. That's a false testimony.
But it's just one point of view.
What do you mean?
Like what you understand in Shabbat, how do you see it, which rules do you follow? Because there are people who believe some kind of rules for Shabbat, and there are people...
We're talking Judaism.
No, we're not talking about Judaism. You can say that Judaism is just the point of view of how the halachot were written down by certain rabbis.
You want to get into the authenticity of the Torah? You want to discuss the authenticity of the Torah? That's good.
No, it's not authenticity of the Torah, because the Shabbos rules weren't written all down in the Torah. There were
additional rules.
There were additional rules made
Very
by
good.
rabbis 1,000 years later.
Very good. So Moshe is referring to the rabbinic laws. There are extra laws. The fact that I cannot swim on Shabbat is not something that was given to Moses on Sinai. The fact that I'm not allowed to ride a horse on Shabbat, fine, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the 39 malachot. We're talking about the 39 prohibited acts of creation that we're not allowed to do. What you're saying is interesting in its point, but that's not really connected to what we're saying. When we stand up, we're declaring that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. That's what we're declaring. Never mind how the rabbis interpreted certain things and certain fences that they made. That's something else. That's interesting, but that's not connected to this. So when a person goes to a Jewish court, a Beit Din, and he gives false testimony, that is going against the same idea. He is saying something about somebody else that is not true. Right? He's supposed to honor the Shabbat by recognizing what God did in the days of creation and taking us out of Egypt. And therefore, when he says something false about him, about another person, he is taking away. This is called, he's affecting his reputation. When we announce that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, this is an announcement. We're talking about who God is and what he did. This is his reputation. This is his name. This is his accomplishment. Okay? And we have to do that in a relationship as well. We have to recognize who a person is and what he's done. When we give false testimony, that is the ultimate blemish, if you like, in a lack of recognition of what that person really stands for and what he's accomplished. Okay? That's the fourth level. Each one is giving testimony. One is testimony over God, what he's doing, and the other one is giving false testimony. It's obviously prohibited against the other person. Okay? Let's just quickly go through. Recognize the existence of a person. The second one is not having anyone else interfere in that relationship. Thirdly is to recognize and appreciate and respect the property of that person, recognizing the boundaries that this is his and it's not mine. The fourth is recognizing the reputation of what that person has done. Not to say what he hasn't done, he has done, and what he hasn't done, he has done. And the fifth one is what? Kabed es avicha v'simecha. You have to honor your father and your mother. And on the other hand, you're not supposed to what? You're not supposed to covet. You're not supposed to desire that your friend has. Now, what in the world brings these two things together? What does it mean when you covet someone else's property? You covet his house, his wife. Let's say you covet his house. and someone was to come and say to you, one step at a time, you want his horse, you got his horse. Now you want his car, got his car. Now you want his wife. If someone was to come and say, listen, I'll give you a horse, I'll give you another horse, I'll give you the same car, would such a person be satisfied? No. Why? He's jealous because he doesn't want that person to have it, perhaps. But what does he really want? It's not materialistic. The prohibition is not that you should not want to be rich and to have so much fancy house and fancy home and just a life of luxury. That's not the prohibition. That may also not be so healthy. But that's not what we're talking about here. It's wanting what someone else has. Yeah? That's ultimately it. The fact that you want his house and then you're not happy, you want his car, or you want his food, and you want his swimming pool, you want all these things, what you're trying to really do is you want to be that person. And it pains you that he is he and you are you. This is the ultimate level of jealousy. Okay? You can be jealous of a person because he got 90 on his test and you only got 50 on your test. You'd like to have had 90. Doesn't mean you want to be him. You'd like to have his mark. But if you want his house and his wife and his this and his that, it's a desire to try and step into his shoes, so to speak. You want to be another person. Some people actually are not happy with who they are. Okay? This is what it means to covet. And like you said, it's not a question of just gaining the materialistic, because the materials doesn't help. Yeah? And like you said also, Shlomo, you're jealous because he's got it. Sometimes, I don't want it myself, but I don't want him to have it. I don't deserve the job, but I don't want him to get the job. Yeah? This is even more. I actually want to be in his shoes. Why would a person want to be in someone else's shoes? What would lead a person to be in such a situation? Any ideas?
Maybe then the person thinks that his life is not so good.
He's not so happy with who he is. Why do I want to be him? Because he's so wonderful? Maybe he is. He's more successful. Maybe he has things in life that I would like to have in life. But I'm not happy with what I have. Okay? Why would a person honor his parents? Why would a person want to give honor to his parents?
Because they make him who he is.
They've given me who? Exactly, beautiful. They've given me my life, and I'm happy with my life, and they have made me who I am. Yeah, you have these people that, I don't know, a long distance runner, and he's won the Olympics, and he goes on television. I just want to thank my mum, because a person, when they're at the high point in their life, they recognize they have gratitude. They can have gratitude to God. Yeah? Many people have gratitude to God when things are really going very well. Some people not. But they recognize their parents for giving me life. And the more I'm fulfilled in my life, and the more happy I am with what I am doing, the more appreciation I will have for my parents. But if I'm not happy with what I have, and I'm not happy with who I am, then what am I thanking them for already? What do I have to show thanks to them? You give me this life, I wake up in the morning, I don't even want to be here. Terrible. Yeah? So it's a sense, honoring one's parents is reflected in the same idea as God. If a person has no self-esteem and has no self-value, right, and he doesn't feel he has any value in this world, it's very hard for him to have a great love of God. Why? Because he doesn't feel such a gift, the gift of life. And so too, when it comes to parents, if he doesn't feel fulfilled and he doesn't feel as if his life is something that he really wants to live, which is the most terrible thing that a person can have, then he's not going to afford thanks to his parents. So if a person honors his parents, such a person will have a recognition and a gratitude, and he won't covet. He won't desire the things of other people. He may want to be richer, he may want to gain things, but that's not what this prohibition is. Well, tachmod means to want to be that other person ultimately.
We hear a lot of things, horrible things in the news today. Like parents that did some horrible things for the children. Could you explain them, these commands? Why they should respect their parents?
Okay. So, as far as I know, I'm not a halachic authority, but as far as I know, if a person's parent is a wicked person, they have no obligation. It doesn't mean they have to be a great person, and they have to feed them, and they have to do everything they have to do. If a person's parent is what we call a rasha, a wicked person, they may be exempt from this. I think they have no obligation. They cannot be doing things they still have a different relationship than they do to other people. They shouldn't do things that go against their parents. They don't have an obligation to honor them. There are certain ways that a person is supposed to honor his parents. They're supposed to not contradict them. They're supposed to try and look after them in their old age and to feed them and provide for them and help them. But this may a person may be exempt from that if his parent is really considered to be wicked. What does wicked mean? Wicked doesn't mean I asked for money and he didn't give me money. Yeah, wicked means really, really wicked. But hopefully most people don't have wicked parents, yeah, and then they have to give them some sense of, afford them this honor. Yeah, someone else wanted to ask something?
About not be an honor or honor your parents. I have a question. If it may be aspect, if your life is property, which property, whose property is it?
Is it yours or your parents?
Like, sorry, my English.
Auf Deutsch. Deutsch, gut.
Wie du, wem gehört dein Leben? Wenn du nicht sein darfst, jemand anderer. Gehört dein Leben dir oder nicht?
Oder deine Eltern? Oder bist
Man muss, es gibt ja, wenn man beerdigt wird, muss man ein Stück alles zusammen, muss man nicht verwandeln, weil dein Körper, deins endlich nicht dir gehört, sondern Gott.
Okay.
Ist es in diesem Fall dasselbe?
Yes, there are certain things that a person has to do in terms of the fact that the body that he was given to him, he has to look after it. A person's not allowed to mistreat his body and do things before his death and after his death. But I thought you were going to ask a question about your parents. Ultimately, the honor to your parents, how much honor do you owe them? And really, since you owe their life to them, do they have to be determined for these decisions? Maybe this was not your question, but I think it's an important thing. Let's say you want to marry a man. There's a certain man you want to marry, or a woman, and your parents say no. We don't want you to marry him. Do you listen to them or not? No? But you have to honor them. But you have to honor your parents. Is it nice to say no? You're absolutely right. Was it you? You don't have to listen to them. You have to honor them because they've given you life. But their giving you life allows you to make decisions for yourself. What is the best decision? You should respect them. And if you're not going to listen to them, you have to do it in a way that is not transgressing any of these laws of honoring them. But ultimately, it's your life. They've given you your life, and you're showing gratitude for that. But you can decide what to do with your life. Okay. So we see here a progression, if you like, in the 10 Commandments that we said is really only 5. Why? Because when Hillel told this person, this non-Jew, that whatever is whatever you don't want to be done to you, you should not do to someone else. That is reflected both in a relationship between another person and also in a relationship between man and God. And there was a progression. Yeah, there was a progression. When a person wants to have a relationship, he has to recognize the boundaries of that relationship. We say, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." You have to love you should love your fellow as yourself. Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva, said this is one of the great principles of the Torah. Okay? This is one of the great principles of the Torah. Why is it not here? Because this is exactly what is being spelled out here. This, we are saying here, there are 5 stages in one's relationships, whether they're between him and himself, another man, or with God, that will determine the boundaries for that relationship. That relationship of loving someone else, we all talk about love and what it means to be loved. What is real love? The Torah tells us what love is. Love has certain understandings. To build a relationship, to build a marriage, yeah? Falling in love is a wonderful thing. But to build a marriage, to build a family, to build a foundation, there has to be a certain acknowledgement. And that has to start with the respect of the existence of the other person. It has to be respect the holiness, the sanctity, the uniqueness of that bond between these two people. And there should be no one else involved. Some people say, yeah, we have a marriage, but it's sort of open. That's not holiness when it's open. There has to be this recognition of the holiness, just like there's a recognition between man and God. Then there has to be recognition of the property of each other. Each person has his own boundaries. Then there has to be the reputation of that person. You have to speak well about the person. You can't say things about the person that are not true. And finally, you have to be able to be happy with who you are. You start off with the acceptance and the understanding, right, of the other person, but ultimately it comes back to who a person is. If a person has a very, very low self-image, if he cannot be happy with who he is, it's going to be very hard for him to be in a relationship with someone else, where he can give to the other person. So these are the 5 stages, as it were. This is one approach. Maybe there are more approaches, but I think it's very enlightening, and I think it deals with the problem. I think it's with the problem that we had with this statement of Hillel. Love your neighbor as yourself. Don't do to others what you would not like to be done to yourself. This is reflected in all of our relationships, and this is the This is the way that the Torah, this is the way that Judaism tells us to conduct ourselves, conduct our lives, to always understand the other person, where they're coming from, and with those boundaries and that understanding, a person can really build and develop what it really means to be a relationship and one of closeness.